Some words make her smile. The right words make her obsessed. Most men think nicknames are just cute, harmless little labels. Babe, honey, princess. But here's the truth. Those names are safe, predictable, and forgettable. They don't ignite anything deep inside her. They don't leave an imprint she can't shake. And that's why so many men get stuck in that lukewarm zone. She likes you, maybe even loves you, but she's not thinking about you when you're not around. You're in her life, but not under her skin. What they don't teach you is this. A nickname can be more than a pet name. It can be a frame, a subtle power move, a way to place her inside your world, not the other way around. When it's done right, it creates a charge she feels every time you say it, and even when you're not there. The nicknames I'm about to share aren't random, and they're definitely not for every woman. They are chosen with intention. They touch something primal, and once you understand how they work, you'll see why certain names trigger fascination, respect, and desire, while others quietly kill attraction. This isn't about playing games. It's about leading with quiet confidence, the kind the Stoics mastered. Knowing how to say just enough to make her lean in. By the end of this video, you'll never use nicknames the same way again. Let's get into it. Number 1, naming her from your world. When most men give a woman a nickname, they pull from her world. They choose something she's already heard from a past boyfriend, from her friends, maybe even from her parents. And the moment you do that, you're stepping into her frame. You're playing on her turf, which means you're not leading, you're following. The power of naming her from your world is that it plants her inside your reality. It's not babe, sweetheart, or cutie. Those are universal, which means they're disposable. Instead, it's a name that could only have come from you. Maybe it's tied to a moment you shared, a private joke, or something you noticed about her that no one else would. The point is, it comes from your perspective. Let me give you an example. Michael, 47, met Sarah, 42, at a networking event. Instead of calling her the usual beautiful or gorgeous, like every other guy, he called her boardroom rebel after she challenged a speaker's opinion during a seminar. It was playful, confident, and rooted in his observation of her. That one name carried inside jokes, shared context, and an unspoken reminder that he sees her differently than everyone else. Why does this work so well? Because it changes the dynamic. She's not evaluating whether she likes you. She's wondering what it means to be inside your world. The nickname becomes a doorway, and she wants to keep stepping through it. The Stoics understood that control begins with framing reality. By naming her from your world, you create a frame where you are the center. You're not adjusting yourself to fit her reality. You're inviting her to adapt to yours. And here's the quiet, magnetic part. When a woman steps into a man's frame, she begins to invest in it emotionally. She'll defend it, she'll protect it, and she'll crave it when you're not around. But there's a line you have to walk. Your nickname can't be tried hard or over complicated. If it feels like you're forcing it, she'll feel it too. Keep it organic, light, and connected to something authentic between the two of you. Remember, the best nicknames feel like they just happened, even if you were intentional about creating them. Michael didn't text Sarah one day and say, "From now on, I'm calling you boardroom rebel." He just dropped it into conversation naturally. He said it with a smirk, then moved on. And that's another key. You don't explain the name in detail. You let it breathe. You let her wonder about it. That curiosity makes her replay it in her mind long after you've said it. Most men underestimate how much a single well-placed nickname can shift a woman's perception. It's not about the word itself, it's about the world you attach to it. If she associates that name with laughter, confidence, and the way you make her feel, then every time she hears it, she feels that emotional charge. So stop borrowing names from her past. Start creating names from your present, from your perspective, from your frame. Because when you name her from your world, she can't help but start living in it. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever given a woman a nickname that was completely unique to your relationship? Comment below and start with "I own this" to let me know you get it. And here's the thing. If you think naming is just a surface level move, wait until you see how the way you deliver a name can make her lean in without realizing why. That's what we're getting into next. Number 2, the nickname that makes her surrender. There's a certain kind of nickname that doesn't just make her smile, it makes her soften. It lowers her defenses even if she doesn't want to. And here's the part most men miss. It's not about being overly romantic or dripping with compliments. It's about mixing recognition with subtle authority. When you give a woman a nickname that hints at your approval, but also your ownership of the interaction, you shift the balance. She's no longer just another person in your life. She's someone you've placed in a defined role within your world, and women respond to that far more than they'll admit. The trick is subtle dominance, not aggression, not control in the toxic sense. The Stoics had a saying, control your mind or it will control you. This applies here. You don't force a nickname, you deliver it calmly with presence. Your tone, more of the work than the word itself. A well-chosen nickname in this category feels like you're naming a truth about her, something you've noticed and claimed, but without asking permission. It could be playful, it could be ironic, but it always comes from a position of quiet leadership. The moment you deliver it, she feels the shift. She's reacting to you, not just the word. And here's the psychological layer. Humans naturally respond to someone who defines reality for them. When you name her in this way, you're not just commenting on her. You're shaping how she sees herself in relation to you. That's powerful. And it's why this type of nickname can create a deep emotional pull. This works because it's personal, yet universal. The nickname says, I see you. But it also says, I decide how I see you. That combination recognition plus framing can bypass her logical mind and land directly in the emotional core. She might not even know why she feels a little different when you say it. Of course, this requires balance. Too much dominance, and it feels controlling. Too much sweetness, and it feels needy. The sweet spot is when the name affirms something about her while still making it clear you're the one who set the definition. And here's where most men blow it. They explain too much. They try to justify the nickname, break down the meaning, and in doing so, they strip away the mystery. You don't need to over-explain. In fact, the less you say about why you call her that, the more she'll think about it. Let the nickname live in her head. Rentry. The Stoic approach to this is simple. Your calm delivery matters more than the word. You could give her the perfect nickname, but if you say it like you're asking for her approval, it loses all impact. Speak it like it's already the truth, because in your frame, it is. When you get this right, something subtle happens. She starts to associate the nickname with the feeling she gets when she's with you, grounded, drawn in, and slightly off balance in a way that excites her. That's when she starts leaning into your reality instead of pulling you into hers. So remember, the nickname that makes her surrender isn't about grand gestures or over-the-top words. It's about presence, precision, and the unspoken message that in your world, she has a special place, one you've defined. Now, I want you to drop a comment below and started with, I lead this, if you've ever felt the shift when a woman starts reacting differently to the way you name her. And in the next part, you'll see how adding a single layer of mystery to a nickname can take that pull and turn it into something she can't stop thinking about without you ever chasing her. Number 3, ambiguity fuels her obsession. One of the biggest mistakes men make with nicknames is being too clear, too obvious, too eager to make sure she gets it. But here's the thing, the nicknames that stick in her mind, the ones that keep her thinking about you long after you're gone, are the ones she can't quite figure out. That's the power of ambiguity. It's not about confusion. It's about curiosity. When you give her a name that feels personal, but doesn't come with a full explanation, you create an open loop in her mind. She'll replay it. She'll look for clues. She might even ask you about it. And that's when you smile, change the subject, and leave her hanging. The less she knows, the more she wants to know. Think about Daniel, 45, and Rebecca, 40. They met at a friend's backyard cookout. And early in their conversations, Daniel started calling her Storm. He never explained it. He didn't say whether it was about her personality, her energy, or something she'd done that day. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't overly sweet. It was just loaded. And because Daniel never clarified, Rebecca thought about it constantly. Every time he called her Storm, she felt both seen and challenged. Why does ambiguity work so well? Because it taps into something primal. Our brains hate unfinished stories. We're wired to seek closure. And in relationships, that drive for closure can turn into attraction. She'll start attaching her own meanings to the name, and those meanings will tell you exactly how she wants to see herself around you. The Stoics understood that control isn't about force. It's about guiding perception. By keeping your nickname's meaning slightly out of reach, you're giving her just enough to keep chasing the answer. You're creating space for her mind to do the work for you. Of course, this isn't about being cryptic for the sake of it. The nickname still has to feel intentional. If it's random or disconnected from her in any way, it falls flat. The key is that it should sound like it's rooted in something real, even if you never reveal exactly what that is. Here's another subtle effect. When she doesn't have the full story, she'll start behaving in ways that fit the nickname you've given her. Rebecca started playfully leaning into being storm teasing, challenging Daniel, even dressing a little bolder when she saw him. That's because the name planted a seed in her identity, and she watered it herself. Ambiguity also puts you in the position of emotional leader. You're not trying to win her over with over-the-top praise. You're not scrambling to make her feel good every second. You're giving her just enough to intrigue her, and then you're stepping back. That distance is what makes her lean forward. Most men are terrified of leaving that gap. They rush to explain to make sure she feels safe and certain. But safety and certainty don't fuel obsession. Mystery does. And when you master that balance, you can create a pull so strong it keeps her attention even in your absence. So if you want to test this, think of a nickname that's rooted in your world. Give it to her with confidence and refuse to unpack it. Let her live with the question. You'll be amazed at how much that question works in your favor. Now, drop a comment below, starting with, I keep her guessing. If you've ever seen how mystery can pull someone closer without you lifting a finger. And next, we're going to talk about a completely different layer, how to use a nickname to tap into her vulnerabilities in a way that makes her feel more connected, not more guarded. That's where things start getting even more interesting. Number 4, touching her hidden wound. Every woman carries invisible scars, not the kind you can see, but the kind you can feel if you know where to look. These wounds might come from past relationships, childhood experiences, or moments where she felt overlooked, underestimated, or unworthy. Most men avoid these places because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. But if you understand how to approach them with subtlety, you can create a connection that goes far deeper than surface-level attraction. When it comes to nicknames, touching her hidden wound isn't about being cruel or tearing her down. It's about finding that place she guards and acknowledging it in a way that's both disarming and strangely comforting. The right nickname can turn what she sees as a weakness into something intimate between you. Here's where the Stoic perspective comes in. Epictetus once said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you give her a name that brushes against her vulnerability, you're showing her that it doesn't have to be a source of shame. In your world, it's just another facet of who she is, and it's accepted without judgment. For example, maybe she's always been told she's too serious, too focused, or too guarded. A nickname that playfully references this without mocking can make her feel like you see her fully. She'll notice that you're not trying to fix her or avoid that side of her. You're folding it into the dynamic between you, and that feels different from the way most men interact with. Psychologically, this does something powerful. It creates a sense of safety within the very thing she usually hides. When you frame her wound as something unique rather than something broken, you remove the sting of judgment, and because it's coming from you, the man she sees as confident and self-contained, it carries weight. There's an art to this. If you're too blunt, you'll trigger defensiveness. If you're too soft, it'll feel patronizing. The balance lies in delivery, calm, matter-of-fact, and without expectation. You're not trying to get her to open up on the spot. You're planting a seed that says, I see this, and it doesn't scare me. Another reason this works so well is because it disrupts her usual pattern with men. Most guys either tiptoe around her sensitivities or overcompensate with empty praise. You're doing neither. You're acknowledging the truth, and by doing so, you position yourself as someone she doesn't have to perform for. It's also worth noting that nicknames tied to a hidden wound can become deeply personal anchors in her mind. The more she hears it from you, the more it rewrites the emotional association she has with that part of herself. Instead of cringing at the memory of being too much or not enough, she starts linking it to a feeling of being accepted and even desired. The Stoics would remind you not to wield this carelessly. You're not here to manipulate, but to guide the frame. You control your own words and intent. You don't control how she reacts in the moment. That's her domain. Your role is to remain steady, whether she smiles, teases back, or grows quiet for a moment. When done right, this approach doesn't just deepen attraction. It builds a kind of trust that's hard to find. And in a world where women are constantly guarding themselves against shallow attention, that trust is rare. Now, drop a comment below, starting with, I see beyond. If you've ever noticed how acknowledging someone's guarded side can actually bring them closer. Next, we're going to shift from the personal to the primal, how a nickname can claim her in a way that's unapologetically yours without crossing into neediness or control. That's when she starts to feel the pull on a different level. Number 5, naming the woman beneath the mask. Every woman wears a mask, not because she's being deceptive, but because the world rewards a certain version of her. At work, she's professional and composed. With friends, she's witty and social. On dates, she might be playful or mysterious. But behind every mask is the unpolished, unguarded version of her that most men never get to meet. And that's the version she doesn't just want to show. She wants to feel safe. Showing. This is where a nickname becomes more than a label. It becomes a key. When you name the woman beneath the mask, you're telling her, I see you when you're not performing. That's rare, and that's exactly why it sticks. Take Mark, 48, and Julia, 42. They met through mutual friends and started texting regularly in group settings. Julia was always on, laughing loudly, telling stories, dressed to perfection. But during one quiet night when they were alone, she let her guard down. She talked slower, smiled softer, and didn't feel the need to impress. That's when Mark called her blue. She asked why, and he simply said, it's the calm I see in you when you stop trying to be on. Didn't forget that. Every time he called her blue, it took her back to that moment of being fully seen, without judgment. It became their private code, one that reminded her she didn't have to keep the mask up with him. Why does this work so well? Because most men fall in love with the mask, not the woman behind it. They praise her public persona and feed into the identity she's learned to project. But when you can signal that you're drawn to the real her, you instantly set yourself apart. She feels both exposed and cherished at the same time. That's a combination she'll replay in her mind long after you've left. The psychology here is simple but powerful. When someone validates the truest, most vulnerable parts of us, we naturally attach more value to them. You're not competing with every other man who likes her public image. You're speaking to the version of her that only comes out in rare moments. Version she secretly wishes more people could love. And here's the kicker. You don't have to explain the nickname in detail. In fact, sometimes it's better if you give her just enough to know you've noticed, but not enough for her to feel completely analyzed. Where your own composure matters. If you rush to flatter or over-explain, you break the magic. The Stoics would remind you to remain centered, to let your words stand without needing immediate validation. The strength of a nickname like this lies in its quiet confidence. Mark never tried to force Julia into being blue all the time. He didn't cling to it or make it a running joke. He let it surface naturally, usually when she least expected it. And that unpredictability made it even more powerful. When you name the woman beneath the mask, you're not just, they can finally let the mask drop. Next, we'll explore how a nickname can claim a place in her mind and body without crossing the line into control, and why that balance makes the attraction nearly impossible to shake. Number 6, words that claim without apology. A powerful nickname doesn't just describe her, it claims space in her mind. The Stoics understood this principle in their own way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. When you use a nickname confidently, you're exercising control over your own presence, your own frame, rather than trying to manipulate hers. The words you choose carry weight because they come from a place of certainty. When done right, the name itself becomes a subtle reminder that she exists in your world on your terms. It doesn't have to be overtly sexual or romantic. In fact, the most effective nicknames are often the ones that seem almost casual until she realizes she only hears them from two. That's when they begin to echo in her mind, drawing her back into your orbit. This approach also disrupts the dynamic she's used to. Most men either try too hard to flatter her with generic compliments or avoid personal nicknames altogether for fear of crossing a line. By contrast, when you use a name that is both personal and unapologetic, you project strength. You're not tiptoeing. You're not checking if she's okay with it. You're simply speaking from a place of quiet authority. And here's the interesting part. When you claim without apology, you're actually giving her something to lean into. Women are naturally drawn to men who set the tone, men who define the frame. The nickname becomes a verbal anchor, a place she can return to when she thinks of you. But there's a boundary to respect here. The intent must never be to belittle or humiliate. The Stoics remind us to lead with discipline over impulse. You're not trying to provoke insecurity. You're reverse a connection. Moment it turns into a tool for ego or control. You've broken the very trust that makes it work. Claiming without apology also requires consistency. If you only use the name when you're in a good mood or when you want something from her, she'll notice. To have impact, it needs to be part of the fabric of how you interact. Steady, unshaken, and natural. Over time, she begins to associate that nickname with more than just the sound of your voice. It becomes linked to your presence, your energy, the way you make her feel when she's around you. That's when the words stop being just words. They become trigger. And that trigger works both when you're with her and when you're not. In the quiet moments when she hears the name in her head, she'll feel the same pull she does when you say it out loud. That's the beauty of claiming without apology. It keeps you in her mind without you having to chase her attention. Now drop a comment starting with "I own my frame" if you've ever seen how confidence in your words can make them impossible to forget. In the next part, we'll talk about turning a name into more than just a word, making it an emotional spark. She feels every time you say it. That's when her attachment to you deepens in ways she won't even fully understand. Number 7, turning a name into an emotional trigger. A nickname can be cute, charming, or playful, but when you know what you're doing, it becomes something much more powerful. It becomes an emotional trigger, something that taps into her feelings instantly and pulls her back into a moment, a mood, or a connection she can't shake. The difference between an ordinary nickname and an emotional trigger is all in the way it's linked to experiences. Let's break it down. Meet Daniel, 46, and Claire, 39. They'd been seeing each other casually for a few months. One rainy afternoon, they were driving back from a weekend trip, talking about everything and nothing. Claire admitted she hated the rain because it made her feel restless, like she should be somewhere else. Daniel smiled and said, "Then you're my storm." From that day on, whenever he called her my storm, it wasn't just a random pet name. It pulled her straight back to that quiet, intimate moment in the car. The sound of rain on the windshield, the feeling of being understood without judgment. That's how you create an emotional trigger. It's not about the word itself. It's about the memory and meaning you tie to it. When she hears it, she's not just hearing you, she's feeling you. It's a shortcut to the emotion you've anchored in her mind. The beauty of this technique is that it works even when you're not there. Imagine Claire getting a text from Daniel that simply says, "My storm." She doesn't have to guess what he means. She doesn't have to overthink. Her body remembers before her brain does. That's how deep it goes. This is why timing matters. You don't drop the nickname every 5 minutes. You use it in moments that already carry emotional weight. When she's vulnerable, when she's laughing so hard she forgets herself. When you've just shared something real, that's when the name sticks. And when it sticks, it becomes a private signal only the two of you understand. Psychologically, this works because our brains link words to emotions through association. The more intense the feeling when you use the nickname, the stronger the connection becomes. That's why the best emotional triggers often come from unplanned, authentic moments. You're not scripting the memory. You're catching it as it happens. But here's where men go wrong. They overuse it. The magic fades if you treat it like a casual habit. Just like a favorite song loses impact if you play it on repeat all day. A nickname loses its pull if it's not used selectively. When it comes to emotional triggers, less really is more. For men who follow Stoic principles, this is about discipline and presence. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In relationships, emotional wealth comes from the few moments and words that carry the most meaning. A single well-placed nickname can do more than 1,000 empty compliments. Daniel never told Claire why he called her my storm after that first time. He didn't explain the whole story every time he said it. Let the memory and feeling live in her mind. And because he didn't overuse it, every time she heard it, it hit just as hard as the first time. Now, drop a comment starting with, "I anchor deep," if you've ever seen how one moment tied to the right words can live rent-free in someone's mind for years. In the next part, we'll look at how the absence of certain words can make her crave them even more, and why withholding can sometimes be more powerful than giving. Number 8, the danger of giving her the crown. There's a subtle but dangerous shift that happens in a relationship. When a man hands over the crown, I'm not talking about respect or love. I'm talking about authority, frame, and the position of leadership. The moment you make her the center of your world, not because she's earned it, but because you think that's how you'll win her heart, you step down from the role she was attracted to in the first place. In the early stages, she's drawn to your presence, your direction, your ability to stand firm in your own lane. But the second you make her the ruler of the dynamic, you trade your power for approval. And here's the irony. She didn't even ask for it. In most cases, she'll lose respect faster than you can imagine, because now you've shifted the relationship from desire to compliance. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions." If your ambition shrinks down to keeping her happy at all costs, you've already abandoned the very qualities that made her see you as a strong, attractive man. You've stopped leading and started following. Giving her the crown doesn't always look obvious. It might be in the way you seek her constant validation before making a decision. It might be in always rearranging your schedule for her convenience. It might even be in letting her moods dictate the emotional climate of the relationship. All of these behaviors send the same signal. You're in charge here, not me. The problem isn't that women can't lead, many can and do in different areas of life. The problem is that attraction, especially romantic attraction, often thrives on polarity. She wants to feel your strength as much as you want to feel her softness. When you hand over that balance of power, you collapse the polarity and with it much of the spark. And this doesn't mean becoming controlling or domineering. Stoicism teaches self-mastery, not dominance. This is about maintaining your center, making decisions based on your values, your vision, and your mission, instead of molding yourself to fit what you think she wants. A man with his own crown isn't threatened by her strength, but he doesn't abandon his throne to please her either. The most dangerous thing about giving her the crown is that once she senses you've done it, you can't easily take it back without creating tension or resentment. That's why it's better never to give it away in the first place. Keep the frame, keep the leadership, and you keep the respect. Remember, a relationship is at its healthiest when both people bring value from their own worlds into the shared space, not when one person gives up their world entirely to live in the other's presence. Drop a comment starting with, "I hold the frame." If you've ever learned the hard way or the wise way, that respect is kept by leading yourself first. In the next part, we'll explore how the wrong kind of nickname can quietly erode desire even when you think you're being sweet. Number 9, how the wrong nickname kills desire. Nicknames can be powerful. The right one can build intimacy, spark desire, and create an inside world that's just between the two of you. But the wrong one, it can suffocate attraction without you even realizing it. Think about Jason, a 44-year-old sales manager from Dallas. When he started dating Emily, 39, things were electric. They had chemistry, late-night talks, and the kind of playful tension that makes every touch feel charged. But a few months in, Jason fell into the trap so many men do. He started calling her sweetie all the time. At first, she smiled, then she started to ignore it. Then she began pulling away. Why? Because sweetie is safe, it's generic. It's a label any man could use. And that's exactly the problem. When a nickname doesn't come from your unique dynamic, it stops being special. It starts to feel like filler, like you're leaning on a word instead of presence. The wrong nickname can also put you in a role she doesn't want you in. If you call her baby girl and it triggers her to see you as a father figure instead of a lover, you've unknowingly shifted the polarity of the relationship. And once desire drops, respect often follows. Another trap, overusing the nickname. Even if it starts out sexy, hearing it every other sentence can drain it of all impact. Nicknames are like seasoning. Too little and it's bland. Too much and it's overwhelming. The balance is what keeps it flavorful. In Jason's case, he didn't realize that the nickname was replacing genuine moments of connection. Instead of looking her in the eye and making her feel his presence, he'd throw out sweetie as a placeholder. Emily began to feel less seen, less desired, and more like she was in a comfortable but passionless loop. Here's the fix. Your nickname has to carry weight. It should feel earned. It should be tied to a memory, an inside joke, or an aspect of her personality that you've claimed in a way only you can. It should live in the space between you, not in the air between her and every man she's ever dated. And never forget, a nickname is a reflection of the dynamic you're building. If the energy between you is strong, confident, and a little unpredictable, the nickname will carry that energy. If the energy is needy, predictable, and overly soft, the nickname will mirror that too. The wrong nickname doesn't just fail to turn her on, it can subtly turn her off. It can shift the way she sees you from a man she's drawn to a man she's comfortable with. And comfort without attraction is where relationships go to die. If you've ever used a nickname that you later realize drained the spark, drop a comment starting with, "I've learned this." And remember, the name itself is never as powerful as the man who speaks it. In the final part, we'll uncover the one name she'll never forget and why it leaves a mark she can't erase. Number 10, the final name she'll never forget. There's a certain kind of nickname that doesn't just stick, it lingers. It stays with her in quiet moments, when she's lying in bed or walking through a grocery store, and it pops into her mind without warning. This isn't the cute pet name you drop casually or the flirty label you throw around to get a smile. This is the name that marks her because it carries an emotion she can't fully explain. The power of this final name comes from two things: timing and authenticity. You don't hand it out early, and you don't give it without meaning. It's born in a moment that matters, maybe after a shared challenge, an intimate breakthrough, or a time when she's fully opened herself to you. When you give her this name, it's not just a word. It's a reminder of who she was in that exact moment with you. It works because humans attach deep emotion to moments of vulnerability. When you frame that moment with a name, you're embedding yourself into her emotional memory. Weeks later, when she hears it again, her mind doesn't just remember the sound. It remembers the feeling, and that feeling is what makes her obsessed. This name is also personal to your dynamic. It could be playful, it could be seductive, it could even be slightly challenging, but it always has roots in your private connection. That's why no other man can use it. If someone else tried, it wouldn't land the same way because it's not tied to the shared history you built. It's worth noting that this kind of nickname has to be rare. You don't toss it out every day or every conversation. The scarcity is part of its power. It's like a favorite song. If you play it constantly, it loses its magic. But if it comes on at just the right moment, it hits her like the first time all over again. There's also an unspoken claim in it, not in a possessive, insecure way, but in the quiet confidence of a man who knows his presence is valuable. The Stoics understood this deeply. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. In the same way, the names you choose and the moments you tie them to dye the memory she carries of you. When you speak this final name, you're coloring her thoughts in a shade she can't wash out. Men often underestimate how much subtle language shapes attraction. A final name like this doesn't just remind her of you, it reinforces the frame you hold in her mind. If you are the man who challenges her, excites her, and makes her feel more alive, then every time she hears it, she reconnects with that version of herself and with you as the man who brought it out. And here's the most important part. You don't tell her it's special. You let her feel it. You let her connect the dots. Because when she realizes on her own that no one else calls her that and no one else ever will, it's already too late. That name is yours, and so is the space it takes up in her head. So now you understand nicknames aren't just cute words you throw around in the hands of the right man. They're a tool, a way to shape how she feels, what she remembers, and even how she sees you. The average guy uses them to fill space. You'll use them to create connection, intrigue, and desire. Whether it's a name from your world, a playful challenge, or the one she'll never forget. The key is intention. You're not chasing approval. You're shaping the frame. You're leading the dynamic in a way she can feel but can't always explain. When you do this, you stop being just another man in her life. You become the man, where mind keeps circling back to. And that's where you want to be. If you found this video valuable, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's lesson. We go deeper every single day, and each step builds on the last. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.